Okay, hello everyone. It is 11:43 going on 11:45. Let's just say 11:45. Today is Monday, June 20th, and I was just posting on Facebook. I'm trolling the shit out of Globeheads. Don't take it personal when I troll you guys on Facebook. It's just to get you guys pissed off and shit. But here on YouTube, it's totally about science. And if you guys seen, most of my videos are pretty much solid. All of my videos are solid. No, most of them are pretty much cleared in the comment section. Globers that I argue with on Facebook do not in any way or form try to contradict what I have to say here on YouTube because my science is solid. I use mainstream science to totally open up your guys' minds and to give you guys a new perspective and to challenge your potential fallacies. Most of you globeheads do not research and you recite. You guys recite like you guys are part of a cult. Anyways, I had a request. I asked everyone what you guys want me to post. A lot of guys are saying, a lot of you globeheads are asking for things that I've already posted. You just have not checked out my channel. So go ahead right here. I'm looking at Shannon Shaky Dewey, and he asked me about the sunset. So yeah, that's good. Let's go ahead and talk about the sunset and sunrise and the sun in general. Now we're gonna go all the way back. If you've been following my channel, I go all the way back, and we go ahead and follow the history, the origin, and the authors, the inventors, the founding fathers of everything that we go ahead and research. So since we're going ahead and starting on this heliocentric, let's get started right away. Okay, so we have heliocentric. It says having or representing the sun as a center, as an accepted astronomical model of the solar system. So that's astronomy. So it's measured from or considered relation to the center of the sun. So this is translations, as you can see. Okay. And as usual, we'll go off to the images right away because you globeheads, I've already explained this over and over. Your mind does not see letters and words. It does not. It sees imagery. Your mind translates letters and words that become images. That's why these memes affect your mind so much and so quickly and so badly and trigger you right away. Because memes and images go straight into your brain. Okay, so this whole thing about heliocentricity is totally Catholic, and we'll get into that. But going off to right off the bat, it's totally Catholic, and it's original. It's actually the newer model. The original, the more elder model of the globe heads was not heliocentricity, rather geocentricity, and by that I'm talking about the Ptolemaic model. And as we can see right here, here's one cartoon of it. The difference between the Ptolemaic model and the heliocentric model is full of it. You can see, you can look it up. Basically, the Catholic Church were never ever flat earthers. Wow, you're probably like mind blown. You thought they were flat earthers. No, they were not flat earthers. They were geocentrists, but they were not flat earthers. They were globeheads, and they have always been globeheads. And if you've seen my other videos, you already know how the globehead ideology got into the Catholic Church. The globus is actually a Roman, Greco-Babylonian belief that predates Christianity, in which the organized central bankers that love to grab religion and beliefs and ball them all up into one stupid centralized potential source of financial income, love to make up all this crap. And then, so getting back to this whole heliocentric, you're like, yeah, Simon, you're getting off topic again. All right, so we have as you can see, let's visit that real quick. We're gonna visit this one because this is blend space. When anything is a space, you guys want to see it. Loading. Okay, yeah, let's go back. That's gonna take too long. So the Catholic Church before, matter of fact, let's just look that up. All right, Catholic Ptolemaic cosmology. So here we have the Ptolemaic cosmos versus, let's say the simplified version. Okay, Ptolemaic cosmos versus Copernican cosmos. So the subtopic: the scientific and religious implications of a heliocentric universe rather than a geocentric universe, or the beginning of the scientific revolution. So this is like something you guys could do on your own, and I suggest you guys look, go ahead and go through this, and you could easily look it up. users.class.ufl.edu. And the objectives: number one, the students will be able to list differences in the diagrams of the geocentric universe and the heliocentric universe. Now, again, the geocentric universe was the Ptolemaic model, and let's back that up. So Ptolemy, we'll go off to Ptolemy. Ptolemy actually goes back to Alexander the Great. If you don't know about Alexander the Great, you need to find out, because what happened between Alexander the Great is very important. So Alexander the Great ended up marrying a bunch of Babylonian foreign wives and made them queens, which, to be honest, was totally legal back then. You could have sluts and whores and and a bunch of girlfriends on the side, as as a ruler like Alexander the Great was. He didn't have to make them queens, but he loved foreign pussy. He loved that Babylonian pussy and shit. So he was up on that shit, and he made because he was so in love with his queens, most of his queens were able to manipulate him and get him to do things for the Phoenicians and the Canaanites and all these other, or whatever you want to call them. There's many names for them, but basically Phoenicians and Babylonians and Canaanites are synonymous according to historical records and documents. So Alexander the Great goes off and dies and something. So Ptolemy takes over. Ptolemy was a mathematician, astronomer, astrologer. We're going to go ahead and read this right here. Geographer, music theorist, who wrote a dozen scientific treatises, 3 of which were importance of letter to the Byzantine, Islamic, and Western European science. Now, Ptolemy is the one that started the whole geocentric model. The geocentric model predates the heliocentric model, and at the point where they believe that everything revolves around Earth, as observable reality does seem to somehow imply. As you look up, you feel no motion and you watch the sky move. The concept of us floating around or revolving around Helios was totally something that was religious, and we'll totally get into that in a few minutes. But before we get into that, it's important that I show you the Ptolemaic cosmology and model. This model right here was exactly was used by the Catholic Church and enforced by way of death. Okay, they would kill you if you were to sit there and say, if you were to try to contradict Ptolemy and his cosmological model. All right, you would get burned, you would die, they would do all kinds of weird things to you. Okay, you did not have an easy death if you challenged this belief or this observable reality, we should say. So what is Ptolemy most famous for? Key facts: Claudius Ptolemy was a 2nd century Greek mathematician, astronomer, and geographer, famous for his controversial geocentric theory of the universe, which would form the basis of our understanding of the motions of stars and planets for over than 1,000 years. Okay? Do you guys comprehend this? The Catholic Church adopted Ptolemy's. Okay, Ptolemy and the Catholic Church, Claudius Ptolemy and the Roman Catholic Church. So Claudius Ptolemy and Roman Catholic. You could look all of this up. It goes over a brief history of faithful science, and boom! Simply as we're trying to go through here, it comes up. Okay, so moving all the way forward, from from the Ptolemaic cosmological model, we're gonna move straight up into the heliocentric because this is about Helios. It's not really about Ptolemy. I just had to bring that up as to why Copernicus, Galileo, and even before them, there was, from my understanding, Bruno. Bruno was the first um, Helios worshiper or sun worshiper to suggest that we revolved around the sun, and he was burned at the stake. So moving all the way up to Copernicus. So we have right here a brief history of faithful science. Now, guys, I know this is gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt you bad. All right. And believe me, when I say these things, I say it because I used to be a hardcore Newtonian. Everyone that knows me or has already followed my videos knows this fact. I was a hardcore globehead at one time. Very, very devout hardcore globehead, and specifically a Newtonian. I didn't hate Einstein, but I just didn't I didn't I didn't I didn't I didn't I couldn't accept the fact that Einstein had disproven Isaac Newton, and that bothered me. So all of this leads to that, okay? But anyways, so Nicholas Copernicus was actually a Catholic Church employee. He's a Catholic canon, okay? He was a Catholic canon. He ran the food for the Catholic priests and all that, okay? Now you're like, oh, so he was just like a cook. No, he wasn't a cook. He owned a bakery and all that. Now look, back in the right now, what I mean, everyone's used to this drive-through and all that. But back then, a chef and the people that maintained the food were actually way more important than they are now, especially if it came to dealing with rulers and people that were used to having their lives attempted, to be killed. They were threatened. They were always under threat of assassination, like kings and especially in the with Catholic Church and Catholic leaders and people that had political influence. They had specific people that would taste the food for them just to make sure that it wasn't poisoned and they wouldn't die, because poisoning was the main way of killing someone back then. Okay. Now Copernicus was the one that ran a bakery and the bread, and it was easy to bake in some poison to people and have them eat the bread and they die. Very simple. So Copernicus was actually pretty important. He also ran a tax scheme. He ran around and taxed people. He collected the taxes for the Catholic Church. This guy was not a cool guy. He was a total asshole. He was not one of these light-hearted Christians. No way, no sir. He was one of those Christians that believed in burning people at the stake in the name of God and stuff like that. So let's get started. I'm gonna go ahead and read up on it. Read up for you guys. It says the Copernican model. The story of the scientific revolution begins with Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish astronomer and clergyman of the Roman Catholic Church. He is famous for challenging geocentrism, the ancient idea made popular by Greek philosopher Aristotle that the Earth at rest is the center of the cosmos. However, Copernicus was not the first to propose the Earth orbits the Sun rather than vice versa. To understand the context significance of this work, let's rewind history and look at ancient Greece. As early as the 4th century BC, Greek philosopher and astronomer Heraclitus Ponticus, a contemporary of Aristotle, argued that the apparent motion of the sun and stars is due to the daily rotation of the Earth on its axis. And in the 3rd century BC, Greek astronomer Aristarchus of Samos proposed that the Earth also orbits the sun. However, this heliocentric sun in the middle theory was quickly forgotten as Aristotelian philosophy gained popularity. Aristotle had argued that the Earth is at rest at the center of the universe, while celestial bodies, the sun, moon, stars, and planets, are attached to transparent rotating spheres that surround the Earth. Now, on a pause right there, so you guys are like, wait a minute, this whole flat Earth versus sphere Earth goes way back? Yes, it does. All right, so back then of course, you had the geocentric, the globe heads that believed globes and everything was around. Then you had, of course, the ancient flat Earth, theory where it's a plane of existence and everything revolves around it. And then you had, of course, the heliocentric, where everything revolves around the sun. And you know what? So let's keep going on. Right after this, right here, we'll back up to Helios on why Helios is so important. So it says right here. Let me scroll up. In the 2nd century A.D., the Greco-Egyptian astronomer Claudius Ptolemy developed a mathematical model of the universe based largely on Aristotle's idea. In science, the word model usually refers to a mathematical representation of something, not a physical object like a model airplane. Do you guys see why I troll you guys? Because honestly, look, you guys don't pay attention. You guys don't read. You guys don't read. So I troll you guys hard on Facebook because of this. Okay? Your toy model doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. It's a toy model. It's hilarious. Okay, it's not even a mathematical. It's a toy. It has nothing to do with the mathematical model. This is hilarious. Okay, let's continue. So Ptolemy used complicated geometric and trigonometric formulas to describe the motions of celestial bodies in precise mathematical terms. Now this is big, guys. Another pause is big because Pythagoreanism has always been a religion and always will be a religion. There's no way around it. That religion existed for a long time. It followed right behind the teachings of Trismegistus, the thrice greatest. Okay, so this is important that you guys you guys know the actual the history, the origins of all of this, of where the globular ideology comes from. The celestial spheres, to be totally clear and precise, it's the celestial spheres. Everything has been about celestial spheres, okay? Because that was a religious belief that predates Christianity. Okay, so Ptolemy used the perfectly circular orbit suggested by Aristotle didn't quite line up with observations. So to achieve greater accuracy in his model, Ptolemy added epicycles. So the epicycles, according to this, is like, sometimes it seems like Mars and Venus are racing around each other. So this was to explain that. So epicycles, little circles that moved along bigger circles to the supposed orbits of planets around the Earth. He also placed the rotating spheres slightly off center so that the middle of each heavenly sphere. Okay, I want you guys to pay attention to these words. All right, heavenly sphere didn't correspond exactly to the center of the Earth. When finished, his intricate mathematical model of the cosmos was remarkably successful in describing the apparent motions, what we see, as viewed from Earth, of stars and planets. It also successfully predicted a variety of celestial phenomena, including eclipses of the sun and moon. Okay, Globies? This Ptolemaic model of the universe was perhaps the longest lived scientific theory ever devised, remaining in use for roughly 1,500 years. And as we see with the meme right there, it shows the stars, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the revolutions around the Earth. You see the little epicycles. As you see, Saturn has a little circle around it. It says epicycles. It's totally self-explanatory. Again, that is a model, a meme, a cartoon, and it is supposed to represent what Ptolemy himself observed and calculated. So, moving forward, Christian thinkers in the medieval period incorporated much of Aristotle's philosophy into their theological views. And by the time of Copernicus, most educated Christians accepted Ptolemy's geocentric model of the cosmos as well. For this reason, Copernicus' heliocentric model was controversial among both Catholic and Protestant Christians. Nonetheless, some Christians were attracted to the theory and encouraged Copernicus to publish his work when when he was hesitant to do so. Among these was Nicholas von Schorneberg, the retired cardinal for the Roman Catholic Church, who wrote the following letter to Copernicus in 1536, and I quote. And if I get the pronunciations wrong, then please forgive me. Don't try to crucify me or burn me at the stake. Nicholas Schronberg, Cardinal of Capua, to Nicholas Copernicus, greetings. Some years ago word reached me concerning your proficiency, of which everybody constantly spoke. At the time, I began to have very high regard for you, and also to congratulate our contemporaries among whom you enjoyed such great prestige. For I had learned that you had not merely mastered the discoveries of the ancient astronomers uncommonly well, but had also formulated a new cosmology. In it you maintain that the earth moves, that the sun occupies the lowest and thus the central place in the universe. I have also learned that you have written on an exposition of this whole system of astronomy, and have computed the planetary motions and set them down in tables to the greatest admiration of all. Therefore, with utmost earnestness, I entreat you, most learned sir, unless I inconvenience you, to communicate this discovery of yours to scholars, and at the earliest possible moment to send your writings on a sphere of the universe together with the tables and whatever else that you have that is relevant to the subject. Moreover, I have instructed Theodoric of Redon to have everything copied in your quarters at my expense and dispatched to me. If you gratify my desire in this matter, you will see that you are dealing with a man who is zealous for your reputation and eager to do justice to so fine a talent. Farewell, Rome. 1st November, 1536. Okay, so as we all see, he was under the influence of the Roman Catholic Church. He was a Catholic Church canon. He worked with the Catholic Church. He loved God. He was not an atheist. And everything that he was doing was all for religious and political means. So moving forward, contrary to popular belief, Copernicus was never persecuted for his ideas. The church did require modest emendations to his book, clarifying that the heliocentric model was a hypothesis rather than a proven fact or doctrine. However, that happened more than 70 years after Copernicus' death in response to rising controversy surrounding Galileo's work. We'll get to that story in a moment. So, although the Copernican model placed the sun at the center of the cosmos, in other respects, it is very similar to Ptolemy's model. Copernicus retained the old Aristotelian idea that celestial bodies are attached to hollow spheres. And like Ptolemy, he hypothesized that planets move in perfectly circular epicycles, which in turn move along perfectly circular orbits. The predictions of his model were at best one only slightly more accurate than the prediction of Ptolemy's geocentric model. Since there was little evidence to support the new heliocentric model over well-established geocentric model, which also had a robust history of Aristotelian philosophy in its favor, the Ptolemaic model remained dominant view until two other Christians, a Lutheran Protestant and a Roman Catholic, promoted Heliocentrism nearly 3/4 of a century after Copernicus published his work. Their names were Johannes Kepler and Galileo Galilei. So, as we can all see, this came from the Catholic Church, and we're going to move a little bit more back. I know you guys are probably pissed off by now, but it's for your own good. So we are going to move back. Helios, in Greek religion, the sun god, sometimes called a titan. He drove a chariot daily from east to west across the sky and sailed around. Okay, so Helios goes back really, really far, really, really long. Of course, like looking up into the sky, Helios was probably the most prominent celestial sphere that moves across the sky, and it is all powerful, and it does bring heat, light, and a lot of other things. So humanity does in fact depend on Helios. So in classical Greece, Helios was especially worshipped in Rhodes. And you're like, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with heliocentrism. Yes, it does. Okay, the word helio is this guy, and centricity means revolves. So when you say that reality is revolving around Helios, you really need to know why people are saying that. Why would you say that reality revolves around Helios? Okay, so here, this is where we're at. And we got to remember that the Roman Catholic Church became powerful after years and years and years of them actually assimilating all these other religions. The purpose of the Roman Catholic Church had nothing to do with actual spiritual beliefs. Rather, it had everything to do with central bankers and how to tax humanity and how to centralize humanity under one financial order. As we can see now, it's been a good 2,000 years, but here we are. All right, so let's move back all the way to Helios. So in classical Greece, Helios was especially worshipped in Rhodes, where from at least the earliest 5th century BCE, he was regarded as the chief god to whom the island belonged. His worship spread as he became increasingly identified with other deities, often under Eastern influence. From the 5th century BCE, Apollo, originally a deity of radiant purity, was more and more interpreted as a sun god. Under the Roman Empire, the sun itself came to be worshipped as the unconquered sun. So, as we could see, the Roman Empire, okay, and we all know that the Roman Catholic Church followed the Roman Empire. They're actually the extension of the fallen Roman Empire, okay? So you guys have to remember that all of this is religious. And back then, religion was science, okay? There was no difference back then. There was no separation between religion, between theology and science. It was all one big thing. And because the fact that the Catholic Church had so much power over indoctrination and so much influence over being able to over influence over the human population, okay, and they've used all these powers to centralize a financial a source of finances, a source of funds. Okay, so as we can see, so let's back up to another one, see if we find something else. Of course, this came from the Britannica, as you guys can see. The hell? Helios, Greek mythology. Helios is one of the Titans, son of Hyperion and Theia, and brother of Eos, the dawn, and Selene, the moon, personification. Get off my screen, dude. The personification of the sun. He was portrayed as driving a 4-horse chariot across the sky. Helios was married to Perse, but he had quite a few extramarital affairs, and a number of these children included Charites, Pantheon, Circe, Hades, Pasiphae, Helides, and Helides. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not Greek, sorry guys. At a later time, Helios was conflated with Apollo. To the Romans, he was also known as Sol. Okay, Sol. He has many. These are many words. Okay. Now, Helios, you're gonna be like, yeah, Helios, but Helios actually came from somewhere else. All right, we're gonna get a little bit deeper. We're going back. Helios is Baal. What the hell is that? History. There's a worldhistory.com. Baal. What do we see? He looks like a little elf. So Baal is a Canaan. No, it's not Baal. Okay, I don't know who keeps saying no, it's Baal. It's not Baal. It's Ba. And you can see then there's an apostrophe. There's a pause and all. Baal is a Canaanite Phoenician god of fertility and weather, specifically rainstorms. The name was also used as a title, however, meaning Lord, and was applied to a number of different deities throughout the ancient Near East. Baal is best known today from the Bible as the antagonist to the Israelite cult of Yahweh. On the pause right there, guys, there's the Book of Kings, the second Book of Kings, and you have Elijah. Elijah actually kills a bunch of these guys in the name of God. He runs around killing heliocentric preachers, Baal preachers. Okay, he kills these guys in the name of God. So everyone's like, Simon, why are you so mean? And they're like, and you're supposedly a Christian, and you're trying to tell me not to be mean to people that are preaching heliocentricity and dark energy babble. Then I will tell you, you're not really a Christian, because even the Bible says, do not be kind to these people. Like that says, they're to you at that point, if you're gonna confront them, your job is to destroy them totally in the name of God. So don't be a Christian trying to tell me to be nice to people that are preaching heliocentricity, to all you flirts. All right. So moving forward, tales concerning Baal date back to mid 14th and late 13th century BCE in the written form, but are understood to be much older, preserved by oral tradition until committing to writings. Excavations of the ancient city of Ugarit, modern-day Ras Shamra, or Syria, beginning in 1929 CE, revealed thousands of cuneiform tablets, many of them relating to tales of the gods, and specifically Baal, who became the king of the gods, replacing El. Baal's popularity is attested by the many copies found in the stories that make up the so-called Baal cycle, which relates to how Baal conquers death and assumes the kingship of the gods. The story of Baal's descent to the underworld and return has often been cited as an early example of the dying and reviving god motif, but this has been challenged as Baal does not actually die and return to life. Okay, so the personal name of Baal is also theophoric name, which could apply to many male deities throughout the Levant and Mesopotamia, but is most frequently referred to Baal Hadad or Baal Adad, the god of storms and rain in Canaanite and Mesopotamian religion, who eventually became a war god as well. Baal Hadad is a central character of the Baal cycle and also the god who appears in the biblical books of Exodus and 1 and 2 Kings, where he is portrayed negatively. I just explained that right now. By the time of the Protestant Reformation, he was regularly referenced as Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. Here's where he starts getting, put down as a devil, and because Christianity, it would literally between him, Baal and Yahweh, there was a big war between them supposedly. So he was regularly referenced as Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, and thought synonymous with the Christian devil. In the present day, interest in Baal has been reviewed as neo-pagan and Wiccan groups who often choose him as their personal deity in ritual worship. Now, Baal Hadad originated in Mesopotamia under the names Adad in the north and Iskur in the south. He's attested as early as the time as the Akkadian Empire, 2334 to 2021, 18 BCE, but became more popular after the fall of the third dynasty of Ur during the first Babylonian Empire. Even so, at this time he was not a major deity and was often associated with the storm god Ninurta as a subordinate, or with the great god Enlil as a kind of personal secretary. It was during this time, however, that he came to be associated with the bull as a sacred animal, which would become a prominent aspect of his iconography later. So we're gonna yeah, let's finish it. Baal was also linked with Shamash as an arbiter of justice, with the moon goddess Nana regarding fertility and harvest, and with Shala, a grain goddess. In time, he also became associated with Dagon, also given as Dagon, the Phoenician lord of the gods, owing to his earlier link with Enlil, who had similar role in Mesopotamia. At some point, he became central in divination rituals along with Shamash, most likely because both were associated with the concept of divine justice, and so would ensure a fair response to one's supplications. How far does this go back? Oh, there it is right there. Okay, yeah, it does go into it. Okay, I was about to like jump out of here and go off to find how this ties in to Helios, but we're getting there. Sorry, guys. You guys got to read all this. You know what I mean? You just can't, skip around. It's important that you guys read this. So by the time Baal Hadad's worship reached Ugarit, he was a major deity understood as a sky god who brought rain and was a friend of the life-giving sun. He's referenced as the son of El, the king of the gods. In Ugarit, and is said to live in a palace on Mount Zaphon or Zapan. A stele from a site shows him with a club in one hand and a lightning bolt in the other, identifying him as a god of storms and war. He would be primarily associated with storms and rains throughout his worship. In Ugarit, and later after 1200 BCE when Ugarit was destroyed. So Baal in Levant, while still a thriving city, however, Ugarit participated in trade with others, including the major urban centers of Levant. Baal Hadad seems to have traveled there via trade, through precisely when is unknown. And that's the Phoenicians, guys. The Phoenicians were more like a corporation than they were a race or a religion, or the Phoenicians were more like a corporation. And were they a culture? Yes. Most corporations have a culture, and we can see that with like the Disney Corporation and the Google Corporation. They have their own cultures, and we've seen that. We have been able to see that just of late. Right? Through mainstream media in these days. So continuing, he became a central deity of the Canaanite pantheon, which would inform first Canaanite beliefs and later Phoenician religion. The Phoenician city of Baalbek, modern day Lebanon, was his cult center, where he was worshipped with his consort Astarte, goddess of love, sexuality, and war, associated with the goddess Inanna Ishtar, or Easter, among others. Even so, Astarte was the most popular deity at Sidon, even eclipsing Baal in the number of temples dedicated to her, and is equally represented in Baalbek. So, the interpretation of pairing of Baal and Astarte had been challenging for various reasons, among the possibility that the goddess associated with Baal is his sister, Anat, who is thought to have informed the development of Astarte. This argument, however, seems to ignore her depiction in the Baal cycle and other tales like El's drinking party, in which she is clearly differentiated from Anat, as well as her temples in Baalbek. Okay, so we're gonna move out of this, and we're gonna because that just explains more about the Baal worship. What we're gonna do is Baalbek and Helios. We're finally gonna bring this Baalbek Heliopolis. Okay, so we just seen that those are the same pictures, as you guys can see. There's the same pictures right there. All right. There's many, as you can see. There's many articles. Now, I don't want to use the like Wikipedia. I don't want you guys being saying that that I'm cherry pick, or I'm using some uncredible source. So here's we have the World History Encyclopedia, Baalbek. Okay, so Baalbek is an ancient Phoenician city located in what is now modern-day Lebanon, north of Beirut in Bekaa Valley. Inhabited as nearly as 9,000 BCE, Baalbek grew into an important pilgrimage site in the ancient world for worship for the sky god Baal and his consort Astarte, the queen of heaven in Phoenician religion. So the center of the city was a grand temple dedicated to Astarte and Baal, and ruins of this early temple remain today beneath the later Roman temple of Jupiter Baal. Baalbek is listed in the by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. So as you guys can see, the United Nations is protecting that as a sacred site still. Okay. Um. So let's move up to Heliopolis. So Heliopolis, Alexander, exactly like I said earlier, Alexander had a bunch of Babylonian and Phoenician queens who influenced him into this religion. And here we'll get into it. So Alexander the Great conquered Baalbek in 334 BCE and renamed it Heliopolis, City of the Sun. Alexander the Great conquered Baalbek in 332 BCE and renamed it Heliopolis, City of the Sun. The name still in use in 64 BCE when Pompey the Great annexed the region of Phoenicia for Rome. This was still the designation for the city in 15 BCE when the city became a colony of the Roman Empire. The Romans vastly improved the site with massive building projects, walkways, aqueducts, or roads. Under the reign of the Roman Emperor Septimus Severus, the grand temple of Jupiter Baal was built in the dedicated and the large, most ornate religious building in the entire history of the Roman Empire, whose impressive ruins may still be seen today. The city renamed is oft visited pilgrimage site of the legitimization of Christianity in the Roman Empire by Constantine the Great. Okay, after which, avoiding the fate of some pagan sites which were neglected or destroyed, it was Christianized. The temple of Bacchus, still extant, is larger than the Parthenon of Athens. So as we can see, okay, Alexander the Great conquered Baalbek, took over that area, renamed Baalbek Heliopolis. Okay. Let's wait. Let me see if we find it. Let's just use Wikipedia too, so you guys can see it's coming from different sources. Baalbek, Beirut, Baalbek. So in Greek Roman times, Baalbek was also known as Heliopolis, Greek for Sun City. In 1998, Baalbek had a population of 82,608, mostly Shia Muslims, followed by Sunni Muslims and Christians. It is home to Baalbek Temple Complex, which includes two of the largest, grandest Roman temples, the Temple of Bacchus and the Temple of Jupiter. So Baalbek was called Heliopolis during Roman Empire, a Latinization of the Greek Heliopolis used during the Hellenistic period, meaning Sun City in reference to the solar cult there. Okay, Helio cult. Okay, are you guys paying attention to this? The name is attested under the Seleucids and Ptolemies. However, Ammianus Marcellinus notes that early Assyrian names of Levantan towns continue to be used along the official Greek ones imposed by Diadochi, who were successors of Alexander the Great. In Greek religion, Helios was both the sun and the sky in his personification of God. The local Semitic god Baal Hadu was often more equated with Zeus or Jupiter, or simply called the great god of Heliopolis. but the name may refer to the Egyptians' association with Baal, with the great god Ra. It is sometimes described as Heliopolis in Syria, or Coelesteria, to distinguish it from its namesake in Egypt. In Catholicism, its titular is titular see is distinguished as Heliopolis in Phoenicia from its former Roman province in Phoenice. This importance of the solar cult is also attested in the name Bika al-Aziz, born by the plateau surrounding Baalbek, as it references an earlier solar deity and no later men named Aziz, and not later men named Aziz. In Greek and Roman antiquity, it was known as Heliopolis. It still possesses some of the best preserved Roman ruins of Lebanon. So as we can see how that all ties in, and just get off, dude. Alexander the Great adopts Baal. Okay, so as we can see that Alexander the Great adopted Baal. So Alexander the Third Macedon, commonly known as Alexander the Great, was king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. At age 20, he succeeded his father Philip II of Macedon to throne upon the latter's assassination at the wedding of Cleopatra of Macedon in October 336 BC. Beginning shortly after his father's death, he spent most of his ruling years conducting a lengthy military campaign throughout Western Asia and Egypt, Central Asia, and South Asia. By the age 30, he had created one of the largest empires in history, stretching from the Balkans in the west to India in the east. He was undefeated in battle and was widely considered to be one of the greatest and most successful military commanders in history. Let's see if we find where. Okay, so in 334, he invaded the Persian Empire and began a series of campaigns that lasted for 10 years. He went to Asia Minor, conquered Achaemenid Empire, followed Persia, Macedonian Empire. So he died in 332 BC in Babylon, the city of Mesopotamia that had planned to establish as empire's capital. Alexander's death left unexecuted an additional series of planned military and mercantile campaigns that would have begun with Greek invasion of Arabia. In the years following his death, a series of civil wars broke out across the Macedonian Empire, eventually leading to its disintegration at the hands of the Diadochi. So we could see how he was on a military campaign. He ended up taking over Baalbek, and then he adopted the sky god, and literally mixed up the sky god of Baal with the god Apollo, or Helios, I mean, who was also known as Apollo. So there goes the big. So as we can all see, where the rise of Western civilization is tied to a solar cult, and that solar cult going back as far as Phoenicia and Babylonia, but definitely mixing up with Alexander the Great, the Greeks, then further on into the Romans. And so, as you can all see, we'll go ahead and do one more set. the godson. So here's Set. Here's the god of Egypt. Set, also known as Seth or Suetek, was the Egyptian god of war, chaos, and storms. Brother of Osiris, Isis, Horus, elder, uncle to Horus. So as we can see, Set, Helios, Baal, Apollo, they were all the same. They didn't just represent the sun. Rather, they represent the sun and the sky. They represented the sky itself, the celestial, which would become known later as a celestial sphere. So the sky itself, which is dominated by the sun, was actually perceived as one big force, one big god. Okay, it was definitely a god. And as we can see, it goes back to the solar cults. And I've already explained that they have, by them centralizing and assimilating these religions, balling them up and putting them into one big ball, and just saying that they're, just babbling on about it's the same thing. You could use the same. You could say Helios. You could say Baal. You could say you could say all these different names, but they all meant the same. So when you guys say a sunset, well, here it is, guys. Set. Set is actually the godson, which, like, see, is a god of desert, storms, disorder. So when you say, oh yeah, that's a sunset, it's setting. This is where that word comes from. Every time you guys say that, okay? Every time you guys like, oh, I could see the sunset, you're actually stating an old religious prayer. That's like saying amen or Amen Ra. Okay, guys, this is hilarious. I have to do this and get you guys to understand. All right. So when you guys look at the moving sun and then you start imagining things, okay, it is because of a religious belief. All right, you guys. When you look at the sun set, okay, when you look at this god, when you look at this sky god, or the ruler of the sky, okay, and it's setting, okay, you do not see a globe Earth, okay. What you're stating is that you hope you are revolving around this God, okay. You revolve around this God. You and reality, all reality revolves around this God. Obviously, because it's your God. You don't see a globe. You don't see a globe Earth. All right, guys? You don't. All right? You don't see a globe Earth. All right? You imagine yourself revolving around your God. Do you guys even science, bro?